here. Great show for us today. It's really all about Jubb's whole brain functioning in the instrument and how logic calms, of course, and how you have reduced your internal dialogue and it calms and causes clarity more where receptivity is. And so it's wise, of course, that you would be following what this is. You're looking at how you're sorting information where the vestibular sense is, which is your whole body movements. So you're sorting toward and you're having direction come from within more and coming within. And so you're looking at thought agreement, where it's just different. There's two ways that somebody could be sorting for agreement and getting everything with these sorting styles versus polarizing. And so what's somebody's diary entry about this in your own self, keeping record of things? What's outside and away and is a use of the vestibular senses, and toward and within is as well. And so toward and within, of course, is more pleasurable and interest, and away from and outside is more adverse. And so what's opposite more, and what's obscure, and what doesn't fit, and what's uncertain, and deferring where some difficulty is in a hesitation pattern, and the brain's greatest resource, where is this, where stress is, internal dialogue can have occupied a massive amount of cortex, and resistance can have occupied lots of cortex. So if you didn't clear those things away, which we're suggesting to clear away the internal dialogue, and so now you're more motivated to learning, achieving, and growing and getting recognition and having, endogenous opiates flow from this. And you're more motivated and you focus on the things that's more interesting to you and where you're more excited about things. Aversion, otherwise, really always would have just been triggering ambiguity and activating primal fear sort of response. So how about stopping all those sorts of stories and thinking more and considering people around you? So otherwise the nerve could have been flooded where a system was of some stress hormone from whatever somebody's languaging was. And who's aware of that? Well, we should be. You should become aware. Of course, cortisol and adrenaline, where the body was with the don't, won't, can't, should, try, but, must, and only, you could have only had the flexor muscles pulling you in and shortening your limbs. And so you have a connectedness where aversion is to the flexor muscles, whereas pleasure is connecting you more to your extensor muscles and opening you up. And so you've got a wiring and you have a clarity. And otherwise, somebody could be just going along where some unawareness is and having a more polarized types of behavior where things are. So what's excellent really is the success that you have where you're modelling excellence and where resource is. Otherwise, it's what challenges being met where you're having success, you see. So you've got integration and you've got more, I want more where you're predicting and you're preparing and you're protecting things and it's something is automatic. Otherwise, if something has gone on where the mind was and somebody was just owning into deference and reducing stress of deference, which reducing stress from deference, you could have done ostrich, or you could have just woken up to what's wrong, or woken up to blame. And a new mindset is being more in a visiting frame and looking at the things which need to be corrected and focusing on those things that need to be corrected, you see. But so you're really making a map of the world where you are, and that map is what you have as of the world. And what mild where things are of aversion would have put some don't, won't, can't, should, try, but, must only, never, always, and only ever have triggered sort of things which was about necessity and anxiety. So false astringent types such as judgment and emotional negative types of inner reactiveness it causes transderivational searches for information where people become sort of vague and unclear, and just fed on a fed sort of negative condition. So due diligence is really where you're no longer really stressed out where that is, and otherwise it would have been just worth some actual failure. So whole brain functioning really is a learning and a practiceness of the use of the vestibular sense, which is a meta sense over the top of the other senses, and it causing you to have awareness over those other three states of deep sleep, dreaming, and wakefulness. And so being empty, you've got clarity, and so no expectation per se is. And in a whole brain pattern state, it's automatic that you'd be given direction more to where some degree is of your own calmness is of your nervous system. So it's really you and I communicating, and it's responsive to getting back, and clearly the vestibular direction where decision is and a balance. You've got a range of things which support this, of course, and confidence is boosted, and one could be really feeling not so good about something, and what feeling do you have about that feeling is you popping out of where you were, and the answer where anybody is more, you being more in your omnipresent self in eye awareness with an empty center and just simply having care. So at this point, somebody's really dropped the diaper that they had and all that inner chatter, and evermore, you've got a proper inquiry coming up. And so it really opens everybody up where eye awareness is, you've got this empty center and care, and simply just it's the matter is wrapped around this. So you've got mind, body, spirit reenactment, the kinesthetic, the auditory, and the visual self in this order, and a reenactment, a reenacted sort of experiential state of being. And so a somatic memory is, and somatic flashbacks could otherwise be, and shouldn't this just be empty? And so you're receptive to be just in the presence. So otherwise a triggered sort of sensory cues are going on, and a state specificity where things would have been aversive and trauma would have been, and the physical and emotional experiences where that was just triggered recall of associated states of aversion. And what's the use of any of it? It could be because every emotion has some usefulness. It's just like you shouldn't be being stuck where anything is there. And so you've got a bank of pleasure and a bank of fear, and people could be holding on to those banks and not flowing with the river more. So it's remembering to forget. Yes, it's a memory, and what was aversive, and you in your omnipresent self, you're clearing all of these things away. Otherwise, physical harm could be where one was benefited, but it was at a cost to you and damage, and something has just remained to have been healed up. That was something that was irreparable. But if we don't shut our inner dialogue down, it's just a dilemma. And what genuine inquiry is, where you've got eye awareness, you really have what's needed to be able to have cleared away things from, the manifest chronic pain that most people could be in. So nervousness where loss of anxiety is, yes. And nervousness is a loss of anxiety, well, not really, chronic pain and anxiety, and all of those physical symptoms. So self-awareness, eye awareness is really where you've got partnering skills developed, you're self-initiating, and you've got family skill and group dynamic, and you've got a modified awareness of more of a perfected detachment. And so it's a mental plane of a balanced being more where eye awareness meditation is, and your focus is more on a study where this area is. And so from this unbounded shorelessness where eye awareness is, otherwise you've got some sort of over-sedated condition of a body's perspective, and the body really is really the mind's experience of itself. So cognition really is what's past a body memory, and what's past some experiential conditioning, and eye awareness is empty, simple. And so your shoulders are relaxed, your tummy is relaxed. And in the eye-aware state, which is over the top of wakefulness, you've really got this amount of space and room given. And it's 7 plus or minus 2 chunks of information otherwise, which is what you're awake to. And awareness is over the top of that state. So it's where dreaming is, you've got a pretty loose arrangement of the connection between memory, good, and in sleep you don't have any connection between memory. And so whatever terror was arranged and attempted where illusion was, and then, anybody's speculation, it's sort of a very loose representation, probably, of the outside world after that. So deep sleep is certainly not having any connection between memory, and dreaming is pretty loose about that. Wakefulness itself is only a limited phenomenon. And so you being more in eye awareness, really over the top more of what's perception itself, and you're aware of perception. So eye awareness really is your mastery where the vestibular meta sense is over the top of the other senses. It's the vestibular sense that connects all the other senses together. And so it's behaviour that's formed in more whole brain patterning, and one can be able to learn this, you see. So afterward, of course, you've got a great recall, and you've got state specificity more for being in the frontal cortex versus stress was there before, and then polarization, which was just a don't want, can't, should, try, but must only, never, always. And remembering only having been an emotion that was negative, and triggering all full-blown sorts of components of where that was. And when somebody went to recall things and it was only state-specific with anxiety comes along with what the recall is of that in memory. And so this is typically what goes on where somebody was in the public fool system and they left things to the last moment to do and only learned things under stress. So the memory, of course, of fact and date, name and things, and lessons where your brain is wired, it's really the storage of moment that is important, and it stores this from a felt importance. And, of course, what's negative is really stored in the bank as a -3. And so you can see how the nervous system is functioned where what's positive is only a value of +1. So the experience where anyone is, if you build a large enough resource state, you can collapse any stuck state into that. And so you've got regions of the septal region, which is responsible for whole brain patterning, and amygdala, which pulls you into more of a limited mind condition. And where somebody would have forgotten yesterday's chores, or they could remember the feeling of a first heartbreak that they had, and the recall of a smell of someone's kitchen, it's really the thrill where bliss is of being empty and accomplishing this. You really have this from zero dialogue. And so fear of all is the most falling. And once somebody really, is managing their emotion, otherwise memory and experience are all being tried to be passed on, and they can't be. It's sort of you get kicked off the stage if you start trying to pass a memory on or experience, which you can't do. So what's structural otherwise, and this is what people love, is the packagedness of something that's logical to you and emotional memory where coding is, and what feels safe and secure versus not dangerous, what feels more joyful, of course, or embarrassing. And meaningfulness where your brain is, you're going to get a bit of a boost where that signal was, for whatever that was. So stress hormone and adrenaline and norepinephrine really could sharpen your attention, but what happens when that's just over the top too much? The brain really is to pay for attention. And on the flip side, of course, memory really where emotion could have faded fairly quick, it's not probable that somebody's just to be able to remember that, you see. So it's just that what's never forgotten where a teacher is who inspired you or embarrassed you, learning really would have stuck, and something changes as a result because you've really got something that's about reframing. So remembering is better, of course, and not to chase fact, but connecting everything more where meaning is, you see, and what matter is. So it's linking information where curiosity and awe is, and fear. That's the brain, maybe not a filing cabinet per se, but a great storyteller where emotion is ever more and linkedness is. And so you really have memory learning and behaviour, and everything is very state specific. And if it was just traumatic reenactment, or sort of repetitiveness where compulsion was, it's traumatic experience that would be underneath that, and the mind-body fixation, you see, and whatever recursive or intrusion was. But whilst somebody's more in an altered state, they could really be including and be inclusive and normal consciousness, and have peak states where you have a more high end of what's possible, and you've got better subjective experience and outcomes more achieved. So where you're associated, meaning you're more present, or no, you're showing up more dissociated, and specific mechanisms of continuity is existing, you see. So what's regulating your moment to moment, and where degrees of your psyche is where this is embedded, it really is a reenactment and an involvingness of what's wary, or what's dependent, or what's idealized, or what's conflicted, where interaction would have been reflecting. Of course, you've got your body's attempt to communicate that. And so Jubb's whole brain functioning model, it's teaching you more about eye awareness and describing how, something could be accepted more favourable versus unfavourable, and what steps could exist more for you to have wanted to hear, and for everything to fall more quiet within. And so where some stage really is, and you've got an opening up, and you've got more psychological, spiritual development, you've got what's ideal, you've got more survival and relation, you've got more self-esteem and internal cohesiveness, and it really is making a difference where ultimate being is. And so you're listening and you're gaining another model, and this is really drawing you more toward something which has really been developed over a long period of time. You see, this treatise which I'm talking to you about, sort of coming from Toltec insight. So the control which really is happening, and what's said, and what's called off, for instance, and what's happening back at the ranch house where all that's going on, you see. So denial, where processing is, it could be made really easy by focusing on what you can agree to, or what you could agree to with some conditioning, you see. So the mind and behavioural framework is really transformational, where the place where your state is, and gaining rapport and keeping rapport versus no, you really lost rapport, so you really don't have any power after that. So it's really up to you, and it's up to mature versus immature to make amends. And it's the prestige of remaining more in a visiting frame. And the visiting frame is like, hey, how are you? How are you doing? It's like, you're open to somebody and you're in uptime. So living in the gap that's between the beats, it's the Path of Hollow Bones, which is 26 volumes. You might like to go to jubbdavid.com and read the volumes of Path of Hollow Bones, which is downloadable. So eye awareness really means emptiness of your center and just simply having care of matter. And it's over the top of deep sleep, dreaming, and wakefulness, you see. So awareness of you having perception is this eye-aware self, and this is your individual subjective condition, which is relating to how wakefulness is, how dreamedness is, and how deep sleep is, and where the gap is, where all of that is, where you are in eye awareness, you see, over the top of it all. So it's certain that who's exuding charisma is really more living in the gap between the beats and kind of has really got this waking state and dreaming state, and eye awareness really is over the top of. And so in this eye aware condition, of course, you're really living in the gap, and it's this junction that's between dreaming and deep sleep and wakefulness. And so it's a junction that's between sound and sleep, where wakefulness is, and the transitions that take place, where awareness is over the top of what's you staying where your own being is. And so being in uptime and having flexibility is really key, and you're sorting toward and having things within as a direction is going to help you have a good start. Being focused where interest is and pleasure, those are the things which really is helpful for you and I. What's your story and what's your non-verbals and these sorts of things. But basically, could you say that all of this comes because you've got an emptiness inside and you've cleared away all of your internal dialogue? Yes, to have access to the vestibular sense. Anyway, hope you've really enjoyed this show. Really looking forward for us to catch up to each other in another show. Love you guys. Catch up to you with Lukey.